The Boehringer family is best described as an entrepreneurial legacy family. This is a multigenerational industrial dynasty that built its wealth through science, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, and long-term private ownership. Over more than 140 years, the family transformed a small German chemical business into one of the largest privately controlled pharmaceutical companies in the world, while keeping ownership concentrated within the family across multiple generations. The story begins with Albert Boehringer, who founded the company in 1885 in Ingelheim am Rhein, Germany. During the late 1800s, Germany was rapidly becoming one of the world's leading industrial and scientific powers. Chemistry, engineering, and manufacturing were driving economic growth across the country. Albert Boehringer entered this environment at exactly the right moment. He understood that industrial chemistry was becoming essential to food production, medicine, agriculture, and manufacturing. The original company focused on tartaric acid production. Tartaric acid was used in food processing and industrial applications, and although it sounds modest today, this type of chemical manufacturing required technical knowledge, production discipline, and scaling capability. The production of tartaric acid also gave the company early experience in fermentation, purification, and quality control. Albert Boehringer was building an industrial operation centered around process control and chemical production. That early manufacturing experience became the foundation of the family fortune. The company gradually expanded into pharmaceutical ingredients and eventually into full pharmaceutical research and development. This transition was critical because many industrial chemical companies from that era failed to evolve into modern drug companies. Boehringer Ingelheim succeeded because the family continuously reinvested into scientific capability, laboratory infrastructure, and manufacturing systems. Albert Boehringer also established several cultural traits that stayed inside the company for generations. The family developed a reputation for discipline, privacy, conservatism, and long-term thinking. They generally avoided excessive public exposure and focused heavily on operational competence. Over time, the family became known less as public personalities and more as industrial owners deeply connected to the company itself. Albert Boehringer had 8 children. After his death in 1939, the management of the company passed primarily to his 2 sons and a son-in-law. The second generation inherited a business operating during one of the most unstable periods in European history. Germany experienced World War I, economic collapse, hyperinflation, political extremism, and eventually World War II. Surviving these periods required adaptability and careful stewardship. Like many German industrial families, the Boehringer family had to navigate enormous political and economic disruption while protecting factories, workers, and production capabilities. After World War II, the company entered a major expansion phase. Europe was rebuilding, healthcare demand was growing rapidly, and pharmaceuticals became one of the most strategically important industries in the world. Boehringer Ingelheim invested aggressively into research and international expansion during this era. The company increasingly specialized in prescription medicines, respiratory therapies, cardiovascular treatments, metabolic disease, oncology, and animal health. The family's wealth expanded dramatically during the post-war pharmaceutical boom. Unlike industries that depend heavily on commodity pricing, successful pharmaceutical companies benefit from intellectual property, patents, research pipelines, and global healthcare demand. As Boehringer Ingelheim developed more successful therapies, the company's scale and profitability increased substantially. One of the defining strengths of the family was their commitment to remaining privately owned. This decision shaped the company culture for generations. Family ownership allowed leadership to prioritize research investment and long-term projects without the same short-term market pressure faced by many public pharmaceutical companies. Drug development often requires years of investment before producing commercial returns, and the family structure supported that patience. Over the generations, leadership gradually became more institutionalized. Earlier generations were deeply involved in direct industrial management and company operations. Later generations increasingly acted as stewards and governors of the enterprise, while professional executives handled daily management. This transition was important because pharmaceutical development became far more scientifically and operationally complex over time. Modern pharmaceutical companies require expertise in clinical trials, regulatory affairs, biotechnology, manufacturing, global logistics, and advanced research systems. The family appears to have approached generational transitions carefully. Younger generations were generally raised with a strong sense of responsibility toward the company and its employees, rather than simply viewing the business as a financial asset. In many long-lasting German industrial dynasties, family identity becomes tied to stewardship. Wealth is treated as something to preserve, grow, and pass forward responsibly, rather than consume aggressively. The Boehringer family developed a culture centered around professionalism, education, privacy, and discipline. Family members were often expected to develop business knowledge, understand the pharmaceutical industry, and maintain the company's long-term orientation. European industrial families frequently emphasize apprenticeship-style learning, where younger generations spend years observing operations, governance structures, and executive decision-making before taking on larger responsibilities. The family also appears to have maintained a relatively understated lifestyle compared to some global billionaire dynasties. While the family became extraordinarily wealthy, they generally avoided building a public celebrity identity. Their wealth remained closely tied to the operating business itself. The focus stayed on preserving the company, funding research, expanding internationally, and maintaining family control. That control became increasingly valuable as the pharmaceutical industry consolidated globally. Many historic pharmaceutical companies were acquired, merged, or absorbed into larger public corporations over the past century. Boehringer Ingelheim remained independent. Maintaining independence at this scale required enormous discipline because pharmaceutical research is extraordinarily expensive and highly competitive. The company eventually became especially well known for respiratory medicine, cardiovascular therapies, diabetes treatments, and animal health products. One of its most commercially important modern drugs became Jardiance, a diabetes treatment that also demonstrated cardiovascular and kidney benefits. This helped position the company as a major player in chronic disease treatment. Another major product was Pradaxa, one of the leading next-generation blood thinners developed to compete against warfarin. The drug became part of a major shift in cardiovascular medicine towards simpler and more modern anticoagulant therapies for stroke and clot prevention. Animal health also became a major pillar of the business. The company expanded into veterinary medicine, livestock treatments, vaccines, and pet healthcare. As global pet ownership increased and livestock management modernized, this division became increasingly valuable. The family's decision to stay concentrated in healthcare-related industries allowed expertise and institutional knowledge to compound over generations. Today, Boehringer Ingelheim remains one of the largest privately owned pharmaceutical companies in the world. The company operates globally across human pharmaceuticals and animal health, with tens of thousands of employees and major research and manufacturing operations across multiple continents. The family itself still maintains ownership influence and remains connected to governance. As of May 2026, the current chairman and CEO of Boehringer Ingelheim is Hubertus von Bombach, the great-grandson of the company's founder Albert Boehringer. However, professional executives run most day-to-day operations. This structure has allowed the company to preserve continuity while still competing in a highly technical global industry. Family control continues to provide stability, long-term planning capability, and protection from short-term shareholder pressures. The modern company continues investing heavily into oncology, immunology, cardiovascular disease, respiratory medicine, metabolic disorders, and biotechnology. Like many leading pharmaceutical firms, it is also increasingly involved in biologics, precision medicine, and advanced therapeutic development. The Boehringer family story offers several important lessons. The first is that industrial expertise compounds over time. The family did not become wealthy through a single breakthrough product or sudden event. Their fortune grew through decades of manufacturing discipline, scientific reinvestment, and operational expansion. The second lesson is the importance of long-term ownership. By remaining private, the family preserved strategic flexibility and maintained control over the company's direction across generations. That structure allowed the business to pursue long research timelines and gradual expansion without sacrificing independence. The third lesson is the importance of generational preparation. The family appears to have treated stewardship as a responsibility rather than entitlement. Younger generations were raised inside a culture emphasizing education, professionalism, and continuity. That helped the family preserve cohesion while the company expanded globally. The fourth lesson is focus. Rather than constantly shifting industries, the family stayed concentrated around healthcare, pharmaceuticals, chemistry, and life sciences. This created deep institutional knowledge and allowed the company to evolve alongside advances in medicine and biotechnology. Today, more than a century after Albert Boehringer founded a small chemical manufacturing business in Germany, the family remains connected to one of the most significant private healthcare companies in the world. Their story is ultimately about disciplined industrial growth, scientific adaptation, careful generational stewardship, and the ability to preserve a family enterprise across periods of massive technological and historical change.